My name is Neil Belfour, and I'm one of the solution architects here at Quest Software. Today, we're going to talk about configuring Change Auditor for SQL Server auditing. To configure any auditing platform, you must be in the Change Auditor console. The web console does not allow you to configure. Once inside this console, you can go to the View menu and Administration Tasks. Now, those that have not used templates at all within Change Auditor, we have to create a template. When creating a template, in this case, we would go to SQL Server. You will also notice there is a template that is already there. It is called the Best Practice SQL Auditing Template. You can create your own template. This is just an included template that comes with Change Auditor that's based upon the recommendations of what we would recommend when it comes to auditing. If you wanted to build your own template, simply click Add. If you wanted to modify this template, I would recommend just creating a copy of it before modifying the original. But if I bring up an existing template, the first thing you would have to do is give it a name. Once you give it a name, you would choose how do you want to audit SQL. Do you want to audit it by the default instance, the named instance, and all instances? Now you'll notice I recommend all instances, and that's what's recommended within the configuration, because this way you have the ability to take this simple template and apply it to all your SQL servers. Well, while we're talking about all your SQL servers, what is required at the SQL Server level? Well, Change Auditor has to run an agent, has to run an auditing agent. So every auditing agent, every SQL Server would require an auditing agent running on that. What else is enabled? Well, we do require the T1906 trace flag to allow for custom tracing. So that also has to be enabled on all of your SQL servers. We do have knowledge base articles on our website if you are unfamiliar in how to enable that trace flag. But when I open up this template, you're going to simply see that I have it set to all instances. Now, mostly everything after this is optional. But remember, this is one of the ones that we recommend from a best practice. Now you're going to see at the bottom tier are all the events that we have set up for already to be audited. On the northern end, no, these are events that we have the ability to audit. We just don't have them enabled within this template. If I wanted to add these events, all I'd have to do is highlight them and simply click Add. But once again, the name of this template is Best Practices for SQL Auditing Template. So what are a handful of the events that we do recommend? When a role is added, a member is added to a DB role, databases get dropped, added, deleted even. So some of the common events are what we recommend from a best practices standpoint. Clicking Next. It's optional. Select columns to filter on. So if you did want to filter on what events you wanted to audit, you can selectively choose those here. Now, I'm going to click Finish. Now, you'll notice I didn't assign this to any SQL servers. All I did was build a template. Well, how do I now apply that template to my SQL servers? Well, if you go to the Configuration tab in the bottom left, what you're going to see is every server listed here that has an agent that's connected in Change Auditor currently. You will notice on my server, here is my SQL server, and I can currently see that I am auditing under the SQL column with the green LED. Well, how do I make this happen? Well, if you go to the Configurations tab, it's going to come up with all the configurations that you have set up within Change Auditor. Now, if you're new to this, the only one you're going to see is default configuration. Now, the best way that I've always found to explain configurations and how they work with templates, think of the configuration as a bucket in a garage. Well, you could put one item into a bucket, you could put 50 items into a bucket. We're doing the same thing. The configuration follows the bucket. The template that we built for SQL is what's going to go inside of that bucket. So what would be my recommendation? I would create a configuration. I would not use the default configuration. It allows you to, especially if you have multiple modules within Change Order, you can define which configuration is associated with what auditing platform. I would create something along the lines called SQL servers. Now that I have SQL servers here, you're going to see all the templates that exist within your infrastructure, all of them. Now remember, we're only focused on SQL for SQL Server auditing. So now you can see, here is the template. I would turn it from a no to a yes. This is the template that we have called Best Practices SQL Auditing Template. And I would click OK or apply first and then OK. Every other template really should say no. But why do I have a couple of templates that say yes here? Account exclusions. I have, there's a couple of accounts that I'm excluding from being audited. And then I am also auditing my SQL services that are running on the SQL Server in case they stop as well. So I have all of these 3 templates inside this one configuration. But the Best Practices SQL Auditing template is the only template that comes built in and pre-configured within the application. Now I have everything built out. I have my configuration file and I have my templates. I can simply click OK. Now at this point, I have yet to apply them to my SQL servers. How do I go about doing that? Let's just wait for this to run through. Since I didn't make any change, it's acting a little slow. Maybe I have 3 SQL servers that I want to audit the same way because everything's set up to all instances and the same SQL servers exist on all 3. I can highlight any of my SQL servers. Now I'm going to click Assign. When I go to Assign, now it's going to ask me which configuration file do I want to assign. In this case, I'm going to go down to SQL servers because that's housing the templates that I want to assign to these individual SQL servers. I would click OK. And once that's done, then you would see the green LED light up SQL auditing, services auditing, and excluded accounts in this case. But the only one that has a pre-configured template is the SQL auditing. Once again, my name is Neil Balfour, one of the solution architects here at Quest Software. If you have any questions, please contact your account executive, and they'll be more than happy to get a technical resource such as myself on the call. Once again, thank you for your time.